It's time for Type 40, your Doctor Who podcast from the Spacebook on the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's king of the geeks, your regular host, and still gathering thoughts here in the wake of Doctor Who's Diamond Anniversary event year. For the first podcast of 2024, though, we've got something momentous to share with you here on our free-speaking, big-thinking show for everyone. Yes, we talk about it all on this show, whenever and wherever and however you started your journey with the Doctor. With the Doctors, 15 incarnations, 61 years and counting. Come and celebrate it all, whether it's an anniversary or not, here on Type 40. And we're suffering a temporal glitch right here and now ourselves on this one, flashing back to just a few months ago. Not only to cover one of the biggest events in the Doctor Who calendar, but to host a panel all of our own. This can't be right, Simon. I mean, who on earth would encourage you and I to do something like this?
It's kind of bizarre, really, isn't it? I mean, it sort of came a little bit out of nowhere. I mean, that's not to say you and I have always talked about this, and we've always been keen to sort of do something at a convention and to get involved. And because I've been going to Whoverville for so many years, it was just a convention that I knew very well, and I knew the style of it. I knew how they ran it, and I knew it was very us. It was very Type 40. I really hope that Whoverville would not be offended if I sort of say, I feel they do their convention in a very similar way to how we do Type 40, which is take it very seriously, but not take it at all seriously, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It became more than obvious when we had the godfather of Whoverville, didn't we? Stephen Hatcher was on the show late last summer, wasn't he? In the run-up to Whoverville 14, which took place again at Quad in Derby on Saturday, the 2nd of September, 2023. And everything sort of lined up very, very nicely. You and I and Sarah and Shah, we spent the day running up and downstairs, didn't we? 3 stories worth, in and out of corridors, ducking and diving, wheeling and dealing, chatting up and cooling down now and again, various guests and other attendees having a whale of a time, and that time positively flew by, didn't it?
It did. I mean, it really has to be said that behind the scenes beforehand, when Steve Hatcher basically said, you're on, guys, because I was just cheeky, and I contacted Steve and said, look, what about it? And he came back pretty much straight away and said, yeah, okay. And so you and I were like, okay, so what does that actually mean? What have we got to do here?
I think we were just relieved that Steve was going to let us in. Yeah. We had no idea that he was going to let us up on stage and to bring... My phrase of the day was flying by the seat of our pants, and we really, really were. But in a good way. It was all good fun. We were wheeling along. We were freewheeling. That's what we were doing. In a great way. And I think it's partly because of the people that were involved. Steve and Andrew and everybody else at the Hoovers were very, very inviting, very accommodating. The staff at Quad were immensely helpful. The surroundings were beautiful, even though it was somewhat of a grey day at first. I mean, the historic side to Derby, wasn't it? So you got all sorts of buildings and things in the immediate area of Quad, and the food was great. The company was fantastic.
The hospitality was brilliant. We were made very, very welcome, and we could have felt like we were the new kids on the block, which indeed we were. But
very much so.
But we didn't. I don't know about you. I didn't feel like it. They made us very, very welcome, and they were. I think it's the first time they'd had a podcast there for a number of years. So they were kind of, learning on the job. We were all learning on the job. And that's why if we'd had less willing people on the Whoverville side, it would have been a lot harder all round. But they were very willing. They were very easygoing with us. And it was a great pleasure. We had a ball, didn't we, Dan? We had a ball.
Yeah. And in all actuality, whilst it was great to sort of... be on the microphone and up on stage and talking to people and other people listening and all this sort of stuff. It was very, very warm and very communal. That was fantastic. That's exactly what we wanted it to be. I think the best thing about it was simply to meet in person a few of the people we'd had on the show and spoken to remotely. So it's friends and chums from the fandom from times past and the present, and people that we've wanted, that we've had on several times. People like Keith from Real Time Pictures, from the Mythmakers videos. He was there too, and although he was running around just as much as we were, we at least got to shake hands with the guy. And Ian Kubiak from Cygnus Alpha was there too. Lots of other fantastic people who somehow the roads that they've been sort of travelling up and down whilst they carry out their business, selling their wares and booking up their events or doing whatever it is that they do, we were bound to catch up with them eventually. I think that's...
Yes, and some of the viewers, some of the Type 40 viewers were there, and they came to say hello, which was great. We'd always hoped that would be, because we're very much a case of we want to get out there into the public, we want to meet people. That's how we are. We're not the kind of people who just want to sit in our bedroom and do YouTube videos. The exciting thing is getting out there and meeting people in person. And so that was great as well, just to meet people.
It was lovely. And if you're one of the people who introduced yourselves to any of us hanging around on stairwells or in the auditoriums or even in the cafeteria outside Quad that day, hey, thank you for doing that. It made all the difference to us. It really brightened up our day and sort of kept us going too, didn't it, Simon?
Yeah, and we were a bit cheeky. We were going up to people. So many people did lovely little links for us, and they were nobody refused us. I have to say, everybody that we asked, would you like to do a bit on camera? Every single person said yes. Meeting the other guests, meeting people like Sophie Aldred, Michael Jaston, Sylvester McCoy. We bumped into these people, or we got chatting to them.
And everyone who indulged us, you have our immense gratitude for that alone. And none more so than our three guests you're going to get. You're going to get to hear from on this edition of Type 48 Doctor Who podcast. And I'm talking about Mr. Tim Treloar. He plays the third Doctor for Big Finish at the moment and has been doing for several years now, but he's a very renowned actor outside of the Whoniverse. So he's here with us, as is Jonathan Carley too, an actor and performer, huge Doctor Who fan, just as it turns out, and lately has become noted for playing the role of the younger War Doctor, again for Big Finish. And last but definitely not least was Doctor Who fandom publishing legend, Mr. Gary Russell, old friend of yours, Simon. So we got to get Gary up on stage as well and have a proper chinwag with him at long last.
Yeah, I mean, Gary and I go back decades, to be honest, back to the mid-'80s when we would hang out at conventions. And it has to be said, all three of them were really good sports on this, because I remember you and I sort of had conversations beforehand about, look, so what can we do that might be a little bit different, rather than just asking them the regular questions. And this is why we did, to be clear, we did sort of speak to them beforehand in the green room and sort of say, look, we're going to go a little bit off the wall with this. We're not going to ask you the regular questions. We're going to take the mickey a little bit. We're just going to have fun with it. And you and I were a little bit nervous of what their reaction would be. And fortunately, their reaction was, bring it on.
I did notice the whites of Gary's eyes in particular expand when you put that proposition to him, but he's made of pretty stern stuff and he weathered it very, very well. That's after I remind you that if you'd like to do some real-time traveling of your own, each and every edition of this show, past, present, and future, is just a tap or two away on the device of your choice, but only if you know exactly where to look. There's a proper time stream chock full of reviews, previews, interviews, geek outs and deep dives with all our regular panelists and lots more awesome guests. We know there's something for every fan over at type40.podbean.com. More about that later on, but not before we make contact with the matrix of all knowledge that we call the Fandom Podcast Network for a word about all the other cult conversations going on across all the other shows over there. So yes, brace yourself, Simon. We're about to relive our experience live on stage with our guests and a willing audience too there at Quad in Derby last September at this very first Type 40 live show.
Well, according to the Lord High President, I seem to have caused a problem in the universe. Well, it isn't me, it's probably the Time Lords continually using me as some kind of galactic yo-yo. Might I suggest you actually watch Type 40 podcast? That should have all the answers you need. There's always time. Well, I have rather an abundance of it, don't I?
you very much for joining us this afternoon. Welcome. It's lovely to have you here. We kind of didn't know we'd get anybody with the train strikes, so it's just wonderful to have somebody here, so thank you very much. Thanks to our guests. Are you going to introduce them, Dan?
Yes, this is, starting from the very end. Yeah, that's...
Can I just... Actually, I just want to do this, because this is... This guy. This is National Treasure and living legend, Sir Gary Russell. Please put it together. Sir Gary Russell.
It would be terrible if he was a dead legend, wouldn't it, really? I haven't seen Simon for well over 30 years, and I think there's probably going to be a lot of revenge going on.
Yeah, I think there probably will be.
30 years worth of can I say? No, I can't say.
No, you can't say it.
Tea-taking to catch up on here with us at Type 40 Live, here live at Whoverville, 14 here at the Quad in Derby. And we're also joined by two genuine Big Finish doctors.
Not one but two.
We've got Mr. Jonathan Carley, looking very dapper over there.
I've already complimented him on his waistcoat.
Blinders, you're just missing the...
Really?
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Great to have you here. And Tim Treloar, the third Doctor himself.
So big round of applause for our panel, please! Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. It's fabulous to see you here. You've already done I don't know how many interviews today, so I think we're probably... It's a bit like a press junket, isn't it, this?
Yeah.
You know, this must feel like about your 5th interview so far today. So we'll try to mix it up a bit and do something a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I need to ask... I've got to come to Gary Russell first, because, just to put this very quickly in context, Gary, you and I used to hang around together at conventions back in the mid-80s.
Yep.
And we actually bonded over a love of Gary Newman. Do you remember? There are people out there who are sitting there saying, "Who is Gary Newman? Was he Doctor Who?"
Who doesn't know who Gary Newman is, they don't deserve to
They can link now. They are thinking he was in Doctor Who. So no.
He's 13 days older than Gary Oldman.
Yep.
Right, there's a fact of the day.
Somebody write that down.
Somebody fact check that. You got that off Wikipedia, didn't you? And we know how reliable Wikipedia is.
Well, it is actually true.
It's true.
Okay, fair enough. So as I say, Gary, you and I go back to the mid-80s. What's it like being at a convention now as a guest? Because back in the day, you were a mere punter like me. Is it different?
No, because we're all fans. So it just, we're all still in here, Doctor Who fans, so that doesn't change. It's quite nice to be sitting up on a stage and having something to talk about, but that's just because I got off my bum and made something happen once, and for some reason people quite liked it, which is a bit weird.
And the rest is history. An upward trajectory.
But you can never take the fan out of me. It'll always be there. It's genetically wired into me to be at conventions and be with the Doctor Who family and be part of it.
You say once there, Gary, but it's not once, is it? You are the Doctor Who magazine guy, you're the Big Finish guy, you're the novelist guy, you've done all of these things.
Yes. Terrifying, isn't it? Yeah. I haven't written for the show. Russell.
But you did work on it, you script edited it.
I did script edit it, yeah. It's been an interesting way to be a Doctor Who fan. I started off doing fanzines, like you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
stapled together.
Everything has been a spiral from that, really. I've always said that I was very lucky in that everything that's happened career-wise, I was in the right place at the right time. There's no natural talent in any of this. It has always been the face has suddenly slotted into something and someone's come along and said, "Oh, why don't you do this?" And you think, "Oh, all right then, I'll give that a go because I've not done that before."
And Jonathan, Doctor Who fan?
Yeah, born and bred.
Really?
Yeah.
I first discovered the series before it came back in 2005. Because I'm a child of the wilderness years. But as Doctor Who tends to do, is it finds people.
I always think in many ways the wilderness years was a good time actually because it made people be creative. We had to make our own Doctor Who, we had to make our own entertainment, literally. And so I think in many ways the wilderness years was such a creative time for Doctor Who fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they never let it go.
Yeah, we're a tenacious lot.
Yeah. So it never went away. And it was always sustained by something or other.
Were you reading Doctor Who magazine when Gary was the editor? Because a lot of innovation with that title. you really pushed on with expanding what that magazine could be, didn't you? So were you buying the magazine? Were you doing all those fanish things?
I didn't back then. I wasn't aware of the magazine, to be perfectly honest. Sorry, Gary.
I'll forgive you this time.
But like trying to, because the show it was only being broadcast on UK Gold, and we didn't have Sky.
Yeah.
So it was dependent on the videos, which were still coming out. But even some of them had stopped being produced. So some stories were as good as lost, unless you could pay the pretty penny that some of them were being asked for. But Death to the Daleks, a story, I will die on the hill that story has done more legwork in the wilderness years for bringing people into the fandom.
There's a thesis to be written in that. Death to the Daleks brought people into the wilderness.
We've done it. We covered it on the podcast.
We did.
Weeks
Yeah,
ago
we
with
did.
Stephen
I
Noonan
think I'm
and
correct in
that.
saying it's one of the best-selling videos that they had.
You're sniggering.
So, Tim,
I know
come
you're
on.
sniggering.
Let's hear about your Doctor Who fandom side.
What, mine?
Yeah.
Well, now obviously doing trying to recreate the Pertwee era,
Yeah.
I've become immersed in his years, obviously.
Because let's be honest, you're not. Is it fair to say you're not a fan?
Well, hang on a minute. Wait.
Yeah, go for
I'm a
it.
fan of the Who, a massive fan of the Who. And I am actually. But look, I was a massive Tom Baker fan. I was a massive Fourth Doctor fan when I was a kid. But no one had told me about the regeneration thing. So I had no idea. And when it came to the episode when he regenerated to Peter Davison, and then the next week it wasn't Tom Baker,
You weren't happy.
what's going on? What's going on? It's not Doctor Who anymore. Doctor Who for me was the bloke with the long scarf, wet jelly babies, and that was it.
For many people,
so
it is.
Unfortunately, I found girls and sport after
the Who.
that. And the Who, and so yeah, I
I
just left it behind, unfortunately. But then obviously now, I'm a massive fan of the Pertwee era.
Well, I was born with a plastic spoon in my mouth.
Were you?
And yeah, I was.
That's another story.
That's good. That's a quite niche.
What's your
statement.
favourite track by The Who?
Oh gosh, it's either I can't explain.
Favourite album?
Favourite album is going to be Quadrophenia. It's going to be Bellboy.
Interesting.
Fabulous.
I've had enough, or Can't Explain, but one of its tracks.
And so, come on, Tim. What would the Third Doctor then make of all of this, of this convention? And we wanted this Third Doctor
What do you mean, what would
style.
John Pertwee?
Yeah, the Third Doctor. What would the Third Doctor say about this?
In what way?
I don't know.
I don't know, that's really
interested.
hard.
I'm egging out of you a Third Doctor impression. That's
I
what I'm
can't
doing in my clumsy
no.
way.
He charges by the word, this man,
Okay.
Simon. This isn't fair.
It's basically there's a captain flat a cake, please, Aunt Sally.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think he'd love this, wouldn't he? I think he did conventions.
He
John
loved
Pertwee.
conventions.
Yeah,
and he
loved
always
it.
used to turn up in full costume.
So he did, yeah.
Always turn. And he used to stand
he
on stage.
refused to use
No
the word
pressure, guys, no
convention.
pressure.
Would he? What would he call it?
He would call them conferences.
Oh, is that
Everyone
right?
would say we're at a Doctor Who convention,
Okay.
and he would go, and I'm here at this conference, and he had an absolute aversion to the word convention. God knows why, but he never referred to them as Doctor Who conventions. They were always Doctor Who conferences.
And he took them very seriously, didn't he?
He loved them. He was. The man was a performer.
Yeah.
So even when he was at a convention, he was performing all the time. He took it incredibly seriously. He wanted everyone to see the Third Doctor effectively. Not in the sense that he believed he was the Third Doctor, but he knew that that's why people were coming, and therefore he wanted to give them the show. Poe's background being in variety and everything like that, he knew how to do a turn. He knew how to always be on.
He was a cabaret star, and so he brought that to conventions, didn't he?
Took the Doctor Who very seriously because it was his first serious role. And I'm told he used to spit feathers when he used to get lots of S's in the scripts, and because of the sibilant S.
Yeah.
And so Katie tells me. And he apparently as well, he was meant to be on HMS Hood.
Correct.
Yeah.
He survived.
Which went down only 3 out of 1,500.
He happened to just not be on that day.
Yeah, he was on shore leave or something.
Yeah. It's incredible.
So what do you check your scripts for then, Tim, when they come through?
Oh, the good griefs, the precisely's, the fascinatings.
Ring.
Yes, basically, I do like it when there's lots of S's in there because it helps with doing the voice with that. I'm trying to learn. The thing I'm trying to learn at the moment is trying to deliver. You know, he used to deliver like about 5 lines in one breath, and very sort of like a low timbre to his voice. That's the bit I'm working on at the minute. I think I've got the softness now of him because I don't remember John Pertwee's Doctor. Obviously, I think I saw it a rerun or something when I was a kid, and he scared me. He was because I was used to Tom Baker being this sort of overgrown schoolboy, who I loved, and K9, who was my favourite character.
I love K9. And
I absolutely love K9. It's my favourite character. I want a third Doctor story with K9. But so John Pertwee was scary. He was a bit like a school teacher to me. And it's only since playing him that I've learned to find out so much more about him and learn to love him.
My earliest memory in life actually is the Demons, is Bok from the Demons.
Yes.
That's literally my earliest memory in life. Gary, do you have a sort of an earliest Doctor Who memory?
Yeah, because I'm really ancient.
Well, obviously mine was on repeat. I wasn't really 3 in 1962.
I watched, I remember watching the Hartnell-Troughton regeneration. I had no idea what it was, but I had older brothers, and they were, my mum's idea of babysitting was you two look after him and make him watch whatever television you're watching. And I remember very vividly this moment where what appeared to me to be 3 old age pensioners, because Ben and Polly were both white-haired on a black and white TV screen, and they all looked like my grandma, all 3 of them. And one of them fell down, and my 2 brothers were absolutely like this. So I was 3 or 4, and I was like, I don't quite understand what's going on. But they're very excited by this. And then the music happened, and that was the moment I was hooked, because then I could not be stopped from watching Doctor Who because of the music. So
it was the music, literally the thing to you.
Literally the music made me go, oh, I recognise what I'm watching because of that piece of music. So every week that music was on, I had to watch it, whether my brothers wanted to or not.
And so, Jonathan, presumably for you then, it was Death. It wasn't literally Death to the Daleks on video that brought you into the fold.
There was a couple of moments. There was the other moment was when Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 with Peter Cushing was on Channel 4 during the summer holidays, and Mum just plonked it on and said, "You might like this," and well, here we are. Things escalated a little bit, and something about the Daleks at that time, seeing something that objectively seems inanimate, basically coming to life and not being able to figure out how, why. It's coming from within, not from without, with strings or anything. That stuck in my imagination for sure, and then gradually it just sort of creeped in, like discovering the Doctor Who website, and bizarrely I think one Christmas I got the Destiny of the Doctor's PC game.
That's a
which is a really deep cut. And Anthony Amy's best performance.
I'm sorry. I really am sorry for that.
This seems like the recent past to me.
Being able to discover the quotes on that that were completely out of context, more or less, like the famous speech from Genesis of the Daleks, with Davros going, "I will do it." Scared the hell out of me. But there was no real way to really follow it up. So just those moments that stuck in my brain and see that curiosity.
I always think it's wonderful for people like yourself that came to Doctor Who late in the day after it had finished and then suddenly discover that they've got this huge wealth of material to discover. Is there anybody else out here that was kind of, same as Jonathan, kind of a wilderness fan, as it were, that is only just now discovering Doctor Who for the first time? And I just think it'd be brilliant to go back now and start seeing stuff for the first time. I'd love to be able to say, I've never seen Earthshock, for example, and just go and watch Earthshock for the first time and see it with fresh eyes. You can't do that, but for people of your generation, Jonathan, to be able to do that, is it kind of mind-blowing to discover that there is this huge amount of stuff out there?
Yeah, you couldn't really quantify at that time. You had the list, but then some stories were 2 episodes, some stories were 10, 12, some didn't even exist anymore, and getting your head round that, it's a big rabbit hole to go down when you can discover it. And even when you see something that catches your eye, getting hold of it was the real challenge. Like now, you sign up to BritBox, it's all there, you can watch it from start to finish, you don't know how good you've got it, frankly. So back then, you just have to appreciate what you've got, and I think that perhaps gave me a love for some perhaps unusual stories, sort of defying the wider received wisdom, because you just have to cherish what you had, what you could get hold of. Like I've got a soft spot for the Horns of Nimon, which people consider not the best story.
But in fact, we've lost one at the back. Just there's St John's ambulance in at all.
Those famous words, but it's just one I happen to have, so I learned to love it.
But it's funny because I can remember when Revenge of the Cybermen first came out on VHS, and that again is not probably on anybody's top 10 favourite list. But again, because it was the first commercial video that was released, I just watched it incessantly and grew to love it purely
and
because you could actually re-watch it.
Meglos is my story like that, because Meglos was the first story that went out when I had my first ever VHS recorder. So Meglos episode 1 recorded, watched every single day
My
until
God,
the following
that's
Saturday.
no wonder you've turned out how
I know, it's obviously broken me in some way. But yeah, Meglos is a story people go, oh, Meglos is terrible. I don't know, because nostalgically, you know, I mean, obviously you're mad to think that good, because that's just insanity. But I totally get that it's that nostalgia thing of this is the story I have immersed myself in, and I was Meglos.
In 2005, they started making more of it.
How dare they?
And they're still making more of it. It's never ending. It's self-renewing.
Talking about what exists and what doesn't, Jonathan, I want to ask you about the character that you play on audio at the moment, because we've heard Tim talk about trying to recapture what John Pertwee had done with the Third Doctor, and how you've evolved that, Tim, over the last few years. Those box sets, all those stories. But that's very much one side to a similar coin, isn't it, with what you're doing, Jonathan? There's a character there that was originally created, embodied and brought to the screen by the late Sir John Hurt. But there's very little that we know about that character, his inflections, his habits. He didn't have the screen time to build up.
He had very little
not just clock up stories, but idiosyncrasies, and to dig deep into that character. So for yourself as an actor and as a voice artist, is that liberating? Is that next to a blank slate that you can dive into, or do you actually envy Tim a little? There's a little more to go back to and to dig into and to turn around and to push on with.
Yeah, it is interesting, because we've got the special Day of the Doctor where he's sharing screen time with 2 other incarnations as well, which kind of not diminishes it, but sharing that load, that spotlight is shared. And then he did the set of stories for Big Finish, so I was trying to gather everything I could.
There's always one, isn't there? We forgot to make the announcement. Please turn off.
I'm so sorry.
It's not even a Who ringtone either.
No, I know what it is. You've pressed the little button that makes your phone ring, so you.
That was it. So I could leave. Yeah, that was it. That was the one.
I'm so sorry. I was enjoying myself so much.
I'm so sorry about that. I'm so sorry. Not that sorry.
So, out of interest, Tim, then coming back to Doctor Who stories for yourself, then is there one you sort of said that you got into Doctor Who with Tom Baker, but then sort of drifted away?
Yeah.
But is there still? Do you still go back and watch Doctor Who, or
yeah? Well, the Pertwee years, yeah.
But are you watching the Pertwee years purely because of what you're doing now?
That's how it started, yeah. But I'm enjoying that. I'm working my way through them. The last one I saw was the Autons, Spearhead in Space.
Yeah.
In fact, I recreated.
He nearly knows his stuff.
From space. I recreated the shower scene, by the way, for the.
Not sure we want to know about
Spearhead
that.
Convention. In the actual, in the actual shower itself.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if you don't believe me, don't believe me, dear.
Did you get the tattoo? You needed to get
I
the
got the
tattoo
of
put
the
on your arm.
snake.
Maybe you wimped out, didn't you?
I did wimp out on that. I did.
Did you put the shower?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll show you a picture later. If you don't believe me,
we need the picture.
I'll show you a picture. But the Damon's is my favourite one, I have to say. I know you mentioned it, but there is a couple of things in there that I don't get. You know that I can't remember her name, the White Witch, who's in there.
Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Yes. There's a policeman. Oh, there's a gust of wind. Obviously,
he picks up
a rock, and then he says, "Oh," and he goes back to normal. But she doesn't say, "Why have you got that massive rock on you?" She looks at him and she doesn't say, "Why are you holding that massive rock?" Also,
I'm going to have to rewatch this
John
now.
Levine as well.
Think about this.
At the end, when the Master's getting arrested, John Levine's got a gun, and the Master just puts his cloak on him and he falls over.
Oh, Tim.
That was the other one, and also
stop it! Stop it!
I bet no one here knows who the 2 teams playing rugby that Sergeant Benton and Mike Yates are watching.
Anybody out there know?
There are 2 teams playing rugby.
You sir, do you know?
Nobody knows. Go on. You better know this now.
I do know. It's England, South Africa. It's only because I was trying to date the episode. I was trying to date when they were trying to actually not film the episode, when they were trying to set it.
Okay.
And you say you're not a fan.
And they didn't make
that is quite geeky.
Yeah, that's a bit geeky, isn't it? That is a bit geeky.
That is quite a geeky thing.
That's pretty geeky.
Talking of trying to date things, Simon, I've been taking a look. I'm sorry about this, but I've had to take a look in the Doctor Who diary.
Oh yeah.
Which is obviously, I know it's your book.
It's my book.
But he left it out. What was I supposed to do? And I found out that on the 2nd of September, this date
today.
in Doctor Who history. On the date that we're recording this Type 40 live at Whoverville 14, on the 2nd of September 2015, Big Finish Productions published the third Doctor Adventures. Starring Tim Treloar.
It's all about you.
Oh, really?
With Katie Manning, Richard Franklin, Caroline Seymour, and George Layton as 70s icons, all the way back in 2015. 8 years ago today, your first box set
Was it today? Oh, wow.
We don't have this together, you know.
It's all about you. Yeah, what about me.com?
Yeah. Fantastic. You've got more little facts.
I've got plenty of little facts. It's your book, but if he will leave it lying around. What was I supposed to do? So yes, also episode 1 of the second Doctor adventure, Gary. You're too young to remember this.
Obviously.
But episode 1 of the second Doctor adventure, The Tomb of the Cybermen, that was originally broadcast on Saturday, September the 2nd, 1967. Can you guess? Would you like to take a punt as to how many people watched that on that evening back in the autumn of 1967, Gary?
7.8 million.
Oh, one.
That's close.
Can we have a guess? Can we get a prize? Can we get news to the ball?
Jonathan Carley.
8.5.
Any advances?
All right, I've got 8.1.
Oh no! In that case, Gary definitely wins the prize because he's definitely closest with 6 million. 6 million viewers. 6 million viewers.
And there was
Only 6 million.
another opening.
Yeah, but it's Tomb of the Cybermen. I mean, it's pretty crap.
Oh, here we go. Then there is another opening instalment from today, 1978. So, what was the opening instalment today, 1978? Say again. No,
boss.
Yes. Another round of applause, please, for Gary Rossall.
Sad man sat here. Of course, I know it's Rybos.
You're hiding it really, really well. You sort of thought about it for a few seconds, didn't you?
Let me work it out. I think it might possibly be Rybos from episode 1. Yeah.
It's not, you can't just never take the fan out of it. You can't take the actor out of Gary Russell there. But yes, on the 2nd of September 1978, that was when the Rebus operation commenced. Part 1.
Let's try viewers on this one then. How many viewers, Gary, for this one, for Rebus Operation Part 1?
What year?
78.
Peak Tom.
Tom Baker.
Oh,
so this is
I'm going to plump again for 7.8.
Okay, I'm coming to you, Tim.
9.
Okay, Jonathan.
I'll go 8.5 again.
No, actually, you can't change it. I'm going to change mine. I'm going to go 7.5.
7.5. What was yours, Gary?
7.8.
7.8.
8.5.
Jonathan is virtually spot on with 8.3 million. You weren't even thought of, darling.
In 1995, on the 2nd of September, Real-Time Pictures. Are you aware of their work?
Vaguely. Is that Keith Barnfather? I forget.
Yeah, apparently so. Sorry, but we're all right.
We love you, Keith.
On the 2nd of September 1995, Real-Time Pictures released Downtime, which is obviously that's what starred Nicholas Courtney did it, and Deborah Watling, Elizabeth Sladen, and lots of Yeti, as I remember. There were lots of silver balls.
Silver balls. Balls everywhere. Lots of balls. Lots of balls. Yeah, a lot of balls in that story.
No, I won't say it.
No, don't.
I'm being good. I'm trying.
Move on. We'll get a YouTube strike. You know that.
Yes, and what else have we got? Oh yes, but this is a good one. You like this, Tim? Yeah. So can you imagine what? I'm asking the wrong bloke. Okay, on the 2nd of September, 1666, there is also a connection to Doctor Who. Have you know
it's going to be the Great Fire of London.
we need the connection to the story as well. If you're going to go for it, what was that?
Well, a half point each, sir.
Cooper's got it. Cooper's got it.
Well done, young man. Yes, on the 2nd of September 1666, you're quite right. It was the Great Fire of London, that date in history. And in the season 19 story, the 5th Doctor, these things happen, he accidentally started the Great Fire of London. We've all done it.
Did he?
It's easily done. It is easily done.
In Pudding Lane?
Absolutely.
In Pudding Lane. Yeah.
It was a pteroleptal gun.
Burst into flames.
Burst into flames. I mean, who knew?
Got the warranty on that. Yes. And what else? We've got one more. So also published on the 2nd of September 1999. It's not one of yours, Gary, but the 9 Lives of Doctor Who. That was written by Peter Haining. And we remember the writer Peter Haining.
Did loads of books, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, he published the 9 Lives of Doctor Who. That was with Headline. So it was an unofficial title. All these others have been official, haven't they? But I've still not got that one.
And Gary, I mean, you've written a fair load of Doctor Who books in your time, haven't you? You've done loads and loads of Doctor Who books. But the question I really want to know is, what's your favourite episode of the Famous Five, please, sir?
Classics.
5 go off on a hike.
Are you being serious?
Yes.
That's a genuine.
You
That's
ask
a
me the
genuine
question, I'll give you the answer.
Has there ever been a famous 5 convention?
Yes. Oh
okay.
yeah. Enid Blyton's huge all around the world.
Quite right.
I've been to conventions in the UK. I've been to conventions in Germany. It's the only time I've ever been to Germany. Actually, it's a famous 5 event.
Yeah. And how is it looking back? Because it's just been remastered, hasn't it, for Blu-ray? And so, how is it looking back? Anybody else out there seen Gary Russell and his brilliant portrayal of Dick in the famous 5?
That fellow over there.
God, it's like being back at school again.
It wasn't.
Oh, you played a game. It's called Dick. The best thing of all is the title sequence.
You're right.
Which I'm falling in the water, freeze frame, the word Dick comes up straight across my brilliant. I mean, it really couldn't have been any more embarrassing when I was 14 years old than that, and then being at school and people, well, you didn't have screen guys, but they kind of like draw it when I wasn't looking on the, oh, it's Hamey full of Dick across his crotch. It's like, yeah, thank you, I had to live with that for the next
There is at least one
years.
person out here who's already shown me on their screen. There we go. There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
Thank
I mean,
you.
how do you live that down?
I don't need to live it down.
You think you've got problems, guys? You know, you've got to live with that every day. So, and of course now, Gary, they're bringing the Famous 5 back to television.
Filming in Cardiff.
Absolutely. So do you think there's any possibility of seeing your Dick again on television?
There is no possibility.
Back to that well again.
But nice try, Simon. You can keep making the Dick jokes. I'll back them away. No, we in all seriousness, Jennifer, who played Anne, actually got in touch with the production team and said, "Look, the 3 of us, we're still here." Because sadly Michelle's no longer with us, and we would, do you want us to come and be extras? We could be in a cafe or something like that. And she got this email back from the production team going, "No, thank you. We have no intention of going down that route." I was like, rude, minty.
Richard Hatch went back to Battlestar Galactica. Gary Russell should go back to Famous 5.
Yeah.
Oh, it would be criminal.
Somebody very kindly said to me recently, "Oh, you should go back and play Uncle Quentin." And I pointed out that Uncle Quentin is in his 30s. I'm 30 years too old to play Uncle Quentin, but I could be some kind of weird old scary man on a beach going, "Oh, away with you kids." But it was not to be.
Absolutely rude. I can't believe it. I don't know why would they turn that down. It's a brilliant opportunity. But it is coming out on Blu-ray apparently, and can't wait to see that. It's all good stuff. Same as Wurzel Gummidge has just come out on Blu-ray. Have you been watching that?
No, what you mean the new one with Mackenzie Crook?
No, the proper one.
Oh, is it really?
It's out on Blu-ray.
I'll watch that again.
It's out on Blu-ray. Whole box set
I'm looking
at Inside Kate Gorgeousness.
I'm looking at Gary's shirt there with the Vision On logo.
Yeah, we do need it. Can we please? Let's have a look at the Vision On T-shirt, which is just breathtakingly brilliant. Who remembers Vision On?
Yeah.
The gallery.
But of course, nostalgia and the celebration of pop culture, stretching it back through probably through the 50s even, with Muffin the Mule. My mother was a big fan of Muffin the Mule back then, but it did all through the 60s and 70s, the golden age of television. And now we seem to talk so much about the television past and the past of music. Do you think we're at a point where we could be overdosing on nostalgia as a people, Tim? You know, do you listen to new music, or do you just go back to the old stuff?
I nearly swore then.
I'm with you on this one, Tim.
Absolutely not. It's awful.
Correct.
It's crap. It's like music to me is the Jam, the Specials, and then you go back to the Who, the Small Faces, the Stones, the Kinks, things like that.
Newman.
Yeah, Gary Newman. Yeah, music now is. I mean, look, there's some great house tunes and things like that, but yeah, most of it is.
But Tim, do you not think, and I'm not defending modern music, but do you not, in your head as you're saying that, think back to your parents who would have said of the Jam and the Specials, they'd have gone, modern music, that's not proper music, you know, you want Billy Cotton.
Of course, I recognise I'm like well over the hill from modern music. I mean, I've got friends my age who love, they listen to Six music all the time, and they know
I
the music.
I
just can't.
I don't want to.
But I just can't get a feeling for it. I just can't get it.
Whereas Jonathan, I'm guessing, what sort of music are you into then? Come on,
I'm not very musical at all, to be honest. If I listen to anything, it tends to sway towards film soundtracks and things like that.
Okay then, so you enjoy your films. Do you have another geeky side to you apart from Doctor Who?
Yeah. I mean, Star Wars is a big one.
That
was the first love before Doctor Who, really. because I remember watching, I think it was a neighbour who lent us the video, and then getting the trilogy later on, and that was, because it was around that time, 96, 97, when the special editions.
Correct.
I don't know if that's a dirty word around here.
Slightly.
Came out. And yeah, it had that second wave, really. And also, when it was really small, sort of the early 90s, Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet did the rounds again. And then towards the late noughties came back a second time when they were sort of older enough to appreciate it. Because that was huge again. It was when Tracy Island once again was the must-have toy of that Christmas.
Who's she?
I think I've seen a couple of her films. Why do I say these things?
We were doing so well. We'd got through my dick jokes. Drop us in it again.
I'm watching series 3 on DVD of The Professionals again.
Oh, no, you're talking.
Yeah, love The Professionals.
Look, right, okay then. So was television better back in the day? There's a
It depends how much you watch it, isn't it? It depends your age as well. I mean, I think so. I used to watch much more TV then. And Grange Hill I used to love. The Professionals, Starsky and Hutch, all that. Yeah.
Is television better? It's a different beast, you know.
Yeah.
It's you can't. It's apples and pears. You literally can't compare 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties onwards television. They're all very different because they're made differently. But what I think is important with something you're saying like The Professionals is you're watching it because it's nostalgia, because watching it you feel safe, because watching it makes you go back and think when you were a kid watching that the first time. And that's what nostalgia does, and that's why everyone in this room, because we're Doctor Who fans, we are all bathed in nostalgia. Our entire existence is based around something to do with nostalgia, because we feel comfortable with nostalgia. And it isn't that modern anything actually isn't good. We have no nostalgia for it. But people who are Cooper's age, in 20, 25 years' time, are going to look back on the music they listened to when they were the age he is now, and the films and the TV, and that will be the nostalgia for him. And we shouldn't dismiss modern stuff because we don't have the nostalgic attachment to it. Nostalgia is a beautiful thing, and I think it's great that we all love our TV and everything, but everything is nostalgia for someone as we go forward. Sorry, I got very serious.
You're absolutely right.
We almost turned into Parkinson there.
Everything in moderation.
Absolutely. Maybe final question, because I think we are running out of time, sadly. Will we ever stop talking about Doctor Who? Will we ever run out of things to talk about
God, I hope
with
not.
Doctor Who?
No.
You know, I mean, here we are again. It's just, as you say, Gary, we're all here because of nostalgia. We all love Doctor Who so much.
Even Tim is getting dragged into the
Kicking and screaming.
I'm loving it. No, I'm here.
Never-ending journey.
You do kind of think, will we ever actually run out of things to talk about? Because we just keep doing it, don't we?
Probably not.
I think there would have been I think there would have been a time in the 90s when it wasn't on, that if we hadn't had the wilderness years, if we hadn't had that creativity that pushed through that would have been the testing ground as to whether there was a finite point with Doctor Who. We got through that. So no, even if the show wasn't on air today, I think there will always be conventions, there will always be fans, there will always be people talking about Doctor Who, because we survived the lack once. Now it'll just run in our heads forever.
If it hadn't come back then, do you think
I think
it would still have the same fandom? It would be very different.
I think we'd still have fandom, but it'd be a very different fandom, and it would be a dwindling fandom.
Truth is, there'd be less people here, wouldn't there?
Yes,
today?
of course there would.
And is it because of its renaissance that it's gone worldwide? You know, it's America, it's huge in America, and all
well, it was always quite culty in America. But the Russell's stuff, particularly with David and then with Stephen with Matt Smith, took it to a much bigger audience in America. And the moment that happened, because it's America, the world kind of sits up and goes, oh, this is a really important thing. This is something we can now talk about in an adult way, rather than the sniggering, oh, Doctor Who, oh, look, there's people that like Doctor Who, snigger, snigger. Now it's like, oh, God, this is a big cultural phenomenon, because it had that comeback in 2005.
And it is all accessible now. Wherever you are, you can reach it. That barrier is gone. So as each successive generation or culture comes in and discovers a new perspective on it, a new connection of it, they'll open up whole new discussions that we hadn't even thought about, whether it be an episode that was on last year or back in 1963. There'll always be something new to discover in there, and it keeps renewing, it keeps being more of it that's the beautiful thing. It is self-renewing,
it is the gift
and it
that keeps on
inspires
giving.
people to get on board with that and make their own, to engage and interact.
Well, Jonathan, there's probably now, I'd say, there must be more Doctor Who produced probably on audio than there was on video now, just from Big Finish, from Big Finish alone.
Yeah.
Why do you think Doctor Who works so well in the audio medium?
I think it's partly due to the nostalgia, finding that safe space, that escape from everything so intense now. Just be able to not exactly switch off, but just immerse yourself in something.
Take yourself away
and relive something old but new at the same time. And it invites a personal connection, because those images you create in your mind, they're all yours. Mm-hmm. They're nobody else's.
You cast it, you decide what the lighting's like,
you decide what the special effects look like.
Even though the Big Finish cover artwork gets better and better and better, there's still a lot that one has to bring from within.
Yeah. And you can tell different types of stories because of the medium and because of the audience it's reaching, which perhaps the TV series can't, because it's trying to get to everyone. You can find that really niche sweet spot. There is something for you out there. You feel like this is for me. This is mine. You couldn't really ask for any more than that, and it just really invites that strong personal connection, which I think is very, very special.
I think my last question has to be to you, Tim. Which one, if you could play them in a TV remake, who would you rather play, Bodhi or Doyle?
Bodhi, in a second. I can tell you a really filthy story later, but I won't say.
Stop recording.
Yeah, but yeah, Bodhi, without doubt. Who would you be?
Yeah, it would be Bodhi.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
You know it. Would you rather be Bodhi, or would you rather be Martin Skellen in Who Dares Wins?
That's a good question.
Because not long ago, I've just reviewed that for another podcast from the Fandom Podcast Network. Everybody, I've got the plug out, so I did a culture clash on that. I watched it on Blu-ray. I bought the Blu-ray. It looks spectacular. It looks
great film.
Yeah, it's restored, never been restored before. I'd rather be Martin Skellen. Yeah, fantastic.
You've got to be, haven't you?
Because there's a touch more of the Bond.
Yes,
about it.
I agree.
Just slightly more layers to it.
Yeah.
And he's the whole angle with his wife as well.
Yeah.
I find that also intriguing. Yeah. It's a little bit of a cooler character.
Not the dubious political views as well that Bodhi might have had.
Well, they keep that. They never really fill that in, do they?
No.
Not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think that Who Dares Wins.
Yeah.
Do you think, therefore, that Lewis Collins could have played Bond?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I know he auditioned for it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But do you think he could actually have pulled it off?
I think he could. So many times he was touted for the job, wasn't he?
I think so.
Do you not, Gary? Then sorry, Tim.
Sorry.
No, I don't think.
You don't know.
Don't.
You don't think
it was the director of Who Dares Wins who. Part of the reason why he made Who Dares Wins is because the guy who directed that, he'd also worked on The Professionals, as had Martin Campbell, strangely enough. Mm-hmm. But the idea was that he'd make Who Dares Wins with Lewis Collins, and it was kind of, it was their own film, but he then took that to Eon and said, look, not only have I got you your next Bond, but I could probably direct it. If you like the look of this, I could probably turn in a Bond film. They didn't take the bait. They had, in fact, Roger Moore went to leave Bond 2 or 3 times, didn't he? And he was persuaded to return by one means or another, wasn't it? Because Pierce Brosnan was lined up for a little while as well. Yeah.
See, I think it's the suave thing. I think that's the lacking thing. Because although Ian Fleming did say
he was a rough guy then.
Yeah, and Bond's, I don't know, there's a suave thing about Bond, isn't there? And I can't see Lewis Collins doing that. Although Ian Fleming wrote that he was a thug in a Savile Row suit.
Yeah,
so
that's why the character in Who Dares Wins, he's got the slightly more refined.
He's a thug, isn't he?
Maybe Lewis Collins should have been the Doctor, who knows. Thank you very much, guys. Really sorry, we've got to finish it now. Don't forget, you will be able to have a look at this again on YouTube if you go and look on Type 40. Not quite sure when it's going to go up. But in the meantime, what can we say? Thank you guys for coming in and listening. Thank you so much. Big round of applause. Tim Treloar, Jonathan Darling, Gary Russell. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blood of Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville Show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
Yes, we've teased and tantalised you there, and we can even clothe you too. There's merch to match all of those shows, including Type 40. Just head over to tpublic.com, search for the Fandom Podcast Network, and that's where you'll find a store full of all the team colours for all of the shows on everything from little mugs right the way up to T-shirts and enormous tapestries. Seeing is believing. Treat yourself, treat your other selves. All goes to support the Fandom Podcast Network into the bargain too. So everybody wins. Yes, that was our panel on stage there on Saturday the 2nd of September 2023 at Quad in Derby at Whoverville 14. Simon, does it seem that long ago to you?
Do you know what? I cannot believe it's actually, what is it, a few months ago now, 4 or 5 months ago.
4 or 5 months,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, is it? What's lovely about it as well that should be noted is that, again, you and I were really nervous that we'd have absolutely nobody in the audience whatsoever. Partially because these guys, as I say, had already done a couple of panels through the day anyway, and partially because nobody knew really who we were. And we were thinking, well, we're literally going to be sitting alone in this room with nobody at all. But it did have an audience, and they were really, it was a great audience. So if you were there watching, sitting there, thank you so much for supporting us, because it was great to see people there enjoying themselves and supporting us. So thank you to you. We got some lovely comments as we were departing as well. People had got what we were aiming for, what we were trying to do, and even the guests were still talking to us by the end of it.
I'm happy to say that Quad was still standing, and yes, they're back again this year for Whoverville 15. That's Saturday the 31st of August 2024, coming soon, as the big graphic says, across all of the Hoovers' social media and on their website, so you can go and look them up and book it up, and maybe we'll see you there.
You're watching Type 40.
Yes, Simon, it was a hell of an experience, and the guests were all, as I say, very, very encouraging and game. We tried to find questions that they wouldn't have been asked several times that day, and at various interviews and things like that they would have done over that time. And as such, we had a very Type 40 hour or so with people sort of shooting the breeze, and we hit a couple of relevant points, just enough.
Yeah, I think so. And the thing is that and this is where, as I say, I just feel that we resonate very well with Whoverville, because it's unlike something like an official BBC convention, such as the kind of celebration that they held in the 50th year, that kind of stuff. Those have got to obviously hit certain markers, and they've got to toe certain lines. And Whoverville doesn't have that requirement on it, and neither do we. And so we were able to be a bit more freewheeling with it and run with it a bit and have some fun but not at the expense of anybody. We were certainly not trying to take the mickey out of anybody. We were just trying to have a little bit of fun, be a little bit anarchic, a little bit naughty. Brilliant fun.
It was exhausting, but in the best way. Everybody had a packed day, hadn't they? Yes. Whether they'd been going to the panels, in and out of the dealer's room, catching up with old friends. You could see that everybody had a really, really good time. I mean, Stephen Hatcher himself, he looked relieved, very, very relieved. But also, you could see he looked very proud as well.
Yes. It's got a great buzz about it, Whoverville. I've said many, many times, I think it's the best convention on the circuit at the moment, to a large extent for me, because it feels old school in a very good way. It feels much more like an old school convention. And that's what I love about it so much. It feels like the kind of conventions that I was hanging around in the mid-80s at the same time as Gary Russell was. And a lot of conventions these days are much, much more corporate in feel. And Whoverville feels that it's by the fans, for the fans, and everybody, all the guests, muck in with that as well. And this, again, is where Whoverville is kind of exceptional in that I've been to other Doctor Who conventions, recently, in recent years, where a guest will be ushered through the convention venue with a posse of people. So you still can't sort of get anywhere near to these people. Whereas Whoverville, the guests just wander around almost at their own free will. And they seem to buy into the ethos of Whoverville, which is if a guest is just wandering through, going up the stairs, and you want to just stop them and say a quick word to them, they'll go with it. They won't be precious either. They seem to calibrate, the guests seem to calibrate themselves to that's what the mentality of Whoverville is.
In fact, it even switches round now and again. I think it got to the point where it was Paul McGann that was stopping Shah on the stairs, wasn't it? It can work very much both ways. Yeah. Obviously, I think there's still a place. There's definitely a place for the other kind of events, but it's horses for courses at the end of the day, isn't it? And some ways, it's good to move things on. It's good that this sort of the geek world has expanded in the way that it has, but there's still a lot to be said for a sort of more old school, warmer approach, and with everything that comes with it, with all of those trappings that we're all used to, the etiquette involved. Speaking of which, yes, once again, thanks to everybody at the Hoovers, the staff at Quad, our audience there on the day, and our guests, Tim Treloar, Jonathan Carley, and Gary Russell. Now, Gary Russell's got this book out. It's just been published this last few weeks. It's his adaptation of The Star Beast, the first of those 60th anniversary specials. It's out as a Target-style paperback there from BBC Books, whilst Jonathan and Tim continue to play the War Doctor and the Third Doctor there for Big Finish in successive box set releases. So keep an eye out at bigfinish.com. And that's the old girl starting up and calling time on another edition of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast. I'll be back with another one soon. Look out for that wherever you found this. It could have been at the dedicated home feed for Type 40. That's at type40.podbean.com. Maybe we rolled up on the podcatcher of your choice. Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, all those places. It'd be far easier to tell you the places you couldn't find Type 40. We're also on YouTube, the world's largest streaming platform, on the Type 40 channel with extended video editions of each and every show now. Subscribe to Type 40 Doctor Who on YouTube now, and you can get our other coverage in the run-up and during Whoverville 14 itself, our live on-the-spot interviews and that one-to-one chat with the organiser Stephen Hatcher too. As well as that, you get our weekly live stream magazine show, Type 40 Live, completely raw, completely live, where anything can happen, anything can be said, and often is. We're still on the Fabulous Fandom Podcast Network's master feed. Of course, we are loaded up with so many treats for your ears. Never mind on the weekly, it's coming at you on the daily. If you take a trip sideways in time for more quality shows from the FPN. And if you'd like to have your say on all of this, reach out to us through our social media, Instagram and X, at Type 40 Doctor Who, or email us, type40doctorwho@outlook.com. Then there's always the Type 40 Facebook group too. Masses of new companions who've just joined up in the wake of the 60th anniversary specials, joining our long-standing community there on Facebook. So whatever your take on the specials could be, it can't be argued. They've definitely got us all talking. So look out for our reviews of those coming soon to the podcast. But in the meantime, join up with us there on Facebook and get stuck in. Don't forget, book up for Whoverville 15. Guests are in the process of being announced, Simon. Have you seen that on social media? A few names, classic names, aren't they? And I think there's a lot more to come. I don't think it's our place to spoil that for them here, is it? But where would you suggest they go to find out who's going to be there apart from us?
They've got to go and find the Whoverville website. They can go and sign up on the Quad website itself. And all we would say is don't leave it too late, because Whoverville always sells out quite early on. It's not like it's sold out a couple of days beforehand. It'll sell out earlier than that. So if you are thinking you're going, get your tickets sooner rather than later.
Get stuck in. And if people want to hear more from you, Simon, where can they find you on social media?
They can find me on Facebook under Doctor Who The Hoonatics, where I am the admin on that particular group. Come and say hello there.
And you can find me on X and Instagram as the Spacebook, wheezing and groaning, ranting and raving. It's about all things geeky, inside and outside of the TARDIS. Yes, even though it's a brand new year, it's still the same old guff from me there. Thank you, Simon. Thank you for your support there on the day. And with everything that we've been doing here at Type 40 and Type 40 Live over the last few years, I'm having a blast. I can't wait to do some more of it this year. Genuinely, I can't. And the calendar, we're starting to put little things in the diary in the calendar now, aren't we? So we've got a fair idea where it's going to go. But then again, with Doctor Who, part of the fun of it is kind of making it up as you go along as well, isn't it?
We've got lots lined up, and just because it's no longer the 60th anniversary year doesn't mean we haven't got lots to celebrate, because we're now in the 61st year we've got Doctor Who. I mean, come on, bring it on.
Always something to celebrate in Doctor Who, isn't there? Thanks, Simon. And thanks to you for listening. Thanks for watching. We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40. Take care. Back soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.